Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of By the Numbers. A little bit late, that's my fault. As you'll be able to tell, I'm not in my usual surroundings. I got my time zones mixed up. It's more complicated than it looks using a clock. Anyway, I am your host, Richard Lewis. With me, as always, it is, of course, Duncan Thorin Shields. How are you doing, Duncan?
Yeah, I'm all right. Looking forward to the MLG qualifier this week, so I have to travel up tomorrow. So that's why we're doing it today. For anyone who wonders why it's on Tuesday, but we still wanted to get the show out beforehand because we do have a bad habit of if there's an event on that week, which is like, cool, week off. So, well, technically, you could do it on another day. No, it's impossible. It has to be on the same day.
But we call that pulling the Monte Cristo.
True, that is. Oh, that's also his view, by the way. Like, I still get paid the same money, though, not for doing the work, right? And they're like, well, we sort of want you to do the work, but esports is such a privileged culture at this point in time that you can just be like, can I just not do the work but get the money? And they're like, yeah, I guess so. Like, I mean, I know you guys already have like tapped out. Like, yeah, I can't relate to that actually. Can't relate to that in my life. Speaking of which, speaking of something people can't relate to, you know this joke, this meme people always make about Donald Trump, where he said that thing. It was just an unfortunate phrasing in that interview where he said, like, my father gave me a small loan of $1 million. You know that like famous meme?
Yeah.
Well, there was a scenario like that with Pyth, where what happened was when he tweeted about how they didn't get paid from the World Championships, shocker, when they didn't get paid from the World Championships, eventually they did get paid. And so someone was like, you know, why aren't you upset anymore? And he goes, well, it was only a small amount. It was only about $1,000. And I was like, oh, all right, Donald Trump, fucking hell, mate. It's only $1,000. I know you're on NNIP now, mate.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, real talk. It is, you know, not a lot of money. It can't be a lot of money for you. You're the Lord of Skrilla.
Not now, but a few years ago, that was like a month's salary, mate.
Would you have killed for $1,000 like 2 years ago? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't kill for any amount of money, Rich. I'd only kill out of love or spiteful hate. See, my man have integrity. I have my principles.
They're literally the best reasons. So look, you've been doing loads of work lately. Is everything okay? I feel like I should have an intervention, like just on air. I think you're working too much, Duncan.
Nah, it's going all right, mate.
You sure?
I mean, I have got a secret to it, which is if you've noticed, one of the ways I've been able to keep the volume up is I've done a bunch of like historical ones, and those ones are a lot easier for me because essentially I know like 90% of the stuff going in. I just have to check like the odd fact, you know. And so those ones, they're a lot easier to do. Whereas the difference is, one of the things actually that's strange about making those videos is it doesn't always show on the outside the ones that take the most time. Like some of them really do. You just turn it on, talk 20 minutes, there we go. But other ones, like for example, when I did this Renegades one, I actually did try to go back and watch all these different games. And then I talked to people in the Australian scene. So that one was actually a lot of work for what's essentially just a 30-minute video or whatever, you know. So in general, I've been budgeting out like that. So even if I do a bunch of videos in a few days, it's usually that like I've gotten some that took less time to make it not ridiculous. I have had some time off and watched some shows and stuff.
Oh, well, I'm immensely proud of your output. I'm still in limbo at the moment, so hopefully going to do another edition of the Richard Lewis show once it gets set up. Obviously, being in America, part of that is trying to get into a studio so we can do it and make it look a bit better. But anyway, let's get on to talking about Counterstrike, because I did see some comments last time. I don't care about their lives. I don't care about Duncan and Richard's lives. Fuck their lives. I don't want them to ease into the show and have some, you know, banter with each other and you know, build it up. I want to get straight into talking about Counterstrike because you know, those people are idiots who said that. So
see, what we should have done, Rich, is we should have come on with like do-rags and backwards baseball caps and done a whole 30-minute segment in place of analysis about how we're from Compton. And then that would be considered politically appropriate for where we are at. But we'd only do that, by the way, if we did the event in California, of course. And then secondly, it'd also be considered brilliant. Salty enough, you know. Fairly salty, I think. I'll admit that was fairly salty.
I'm glad. Salt levels are good. But there was an event, and obviously we're going to get into talking about ESL, who we're alluding to there with our Compton references, in Barcelona. It was a CSGO Invitational, and they did it in the style that Carmack claims to have patented, where it's, you know, people have to pick the other teams that they play for, and you've got lives and this kind of thing. So it's a non-standard format. No, of course he didn't. No, absolutely.
I mean, that was actually used in the Red Bull had some tournaments, and they had the StarCraft and Dota 2 they've done it in. But he was definitely the first to do it in CSGO, as far as I know, and obviously on this scale, like they have both those events have been good prize money, and this one had much better teams. It's had some very good teams, and obviously, so yeah, they are the first to pioneer it in CSGO, certainly.
So this was the event, and again, I think it would be remiss of us if we didn't talk a little bit about how it started. There were some crazy problems, which I'm a little bit perplexed by. You know, I think DreamHack have done events in Spain, you know, like Valencia, and not had any of the issues that came up. So I'm interested as to why they would happen. But there was a huge delay right at the start, where I think we were 2 hours or so behind schedule to begin with. Stream kind of went down partway through, which left me having to watch the Russian stream, which was a lot of fun and entertaining. But you know, just some overall thoughts about how it started. You know, it was a little bit choppy for ESL. It wasn't the standard we usually associate with an ESL event.
No, one of the things that you have to give ESL credit for is usually they're pretty good on like the hardware end. You rarely see players complaining about the hardware there, which actually that did happen at this one. Yeah. Usually in terms of starting time, they're usually pretty decent. I mean, let's be real. Even in the modern day, no event is good at the starting time for the first game. Every time, it's been the same for 10 years. Every time the first game says 9 a.m. local time, bet your life it'll never start before 9:30. Like, that's the sort of scenario where they're never going to. But obviously 2 hours is a bit egregious, particularly for ESL in this sense, because, I mean, they also seem like one of the event crews where I figure the reason why they didn't have problems in the past is they do a proper setup beforehand. Because, you know, some events, they still plan to do it a day before, but they don't get it done somehow, or they don't plan how long it'll take, and then it just starts on the day it starts. So I get it when it messes up there, but yeah, a little bit weird. But obviously, luckily, it didn't really like spoil the tournament. Like, it's not like it went overtime and people missed.
No, they definitely fixed it. I mean, it did look a little bit underwhelming. I saw some of the photos. Like, some of my followers on Twitter were like tweeting at me saying, "This is eSports," and it was like you know, the Borg fucking interviewing people like by this tiny little desk, and there was like 3 or 4 chairs with people in, and they looked confused, like they'd wandered in off the streets thinking they were going to get some free food or something. You know, it wasn't a good look. It wasn't like, this is, you know, current year 2016 esports. It did look a bit weird. So I don't know if they maybe thought about the location and all that, and how it was going to go over, but it didn't really seem to look as polished or as good. Certainly when it comes to the end of year, and ESL are putting their decks out about how they've driven esports forward, I don't think they're going to be including pictures from Barcelona, put it that way.
And that's actually one of the things about ESL, which I feel like has been a transition for them, is that they have done a bunch of stadium events now, obviously. Like, obviously, Katowice is one they've done, San Jose they've done a few times. But they were an event where either the big event was always at a trade show, so they just had a small area at a trade show. And so the problems often were just trade show limited, like times it had to close or extra noise that you couldn't account for. Or if they didn't do an event there, it was always in their studio. And their studio, unfortunately, was very low tech. Like, it was like very like low budget, as in like it was very small amount of people could fit in it. They had to have one like camera angle to make it look like there's an audience and that sort of thing. So actually, it's still only been a couple of years, despite how long ESL's been around, that they're really doing these events where it's like standalone events. Now, in terms of this particular one, this feels like it's more of the old school type, where it's like an exhibition and it's more like you're just doing it in the old method. It's not like meant to be a huge event. So at least if you're going to do a smaller scale one, this is probably the one to do it on. Where I like whole thing of this tournament is I don't have any complaints about the format, because it is just an exhibition to me. It's like a one-off. It's a unique format.
Yeah, exactly.
But as a result, yeah, it's not a problem if it doesn't have like a huge stadium. It doesn't have all the flash and the bang we expect of every big event now. You know, I think that's fine.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to see. You know, we've tried to get esports kind of anchored into Spain. There is interest there, but it's like it's almost like some of the South American regions where you've got this interest. You don't necessarily have the infrastructure, and because it's not a big demographic in terms of spending and budget, it's very hard to sort of justify putting a lot of expense into the region because the return's not so great, and therefore it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And if someone's got to bite the bullet, go to a region, do an event there, get the sponsors to back an event there, and then by doing that, you'll eventually sort of grow the scene. And I think, Spain definitely has players out there. It's got organizations, but it's really lacking a bit of kind of long-term investment and long-term interest from, people like ESL and DreamHack and people like that. They need to kind of be the people that do lead by example in that region, which is like what's happening in Brazil now. And we've talked about that on the show before, how, we said it. I think if you go back to like by the numbers 10, I was looking it up. We were talking about how Brazil was going to be the big region for growth, that they were going to start having tournaments out there, that they were going to produce good teams, and that there was all this untapped potential. I think it's possible that Spain could be the same to a lesser degree. Certainly, we saw one Spanish team acquit themselves very well in the form of gBots, which were kind of one of the surprise packages. They had a 16-14 game against Dignitas. They had a 16-13 game against Fnatic. Less impressive against EnVyUs to go out of the tournament. But what did you make of the kind of Spanish teams that were in attendance here overall? Any signs of encouragement, signs of life?
Obviously Spanish teams haven't had an impact on CSGO. They were always around in 1.6 because we always had Game Goon there every year. And so you'd always get to see some of them. And they were never, here's the thing, the top ones would be like, they could maybe be considered like a top 30 world type level. Like some of them could be okay if they had the right lineup together. They were never really relevant in the latter days of 1.6, but it's just essentially at Game Goon. And obviously the bad ones at Game Goon would get run over, like you saw some of the teams here get run over. gBots did all right, considering I didn't know most of the players. I think the only one I knew was the guy called like Kyrie or something, because I think he's been around quite a bit in CSGO, but I think he's the only one that I remember the name of. And I know actually on the other Spanish team, the one that they got bodied, Existence, they had Flippin, who was a player from 1.6. But yeah, here's the thing. What was impressive about them was just that they got close to winning. Say they'd just gotten 9 rounds on every opponent. People would have said the same thing. Yeah, we did pretty well. But actually, that's where I would say, I'm sorry, that doesn't really count, though, because actually, no matter what people say, when you're playing a team of unknowns who really have very little chance to beat you, you're not going to smash them 16-0 and play perfectly on every single scenario, do every retake by the book and every single flashbang and play super safe on T-side. What you're going to do if you're EnVyUs and Fnatic is run in there, take M-Jules, frag them all, and know that you're going to win as a result of it, very likely. But the difference is, by not trying in that way, that's going to lead, like I say, to maybe like a 16-8 or a 16-9. So if it gets to 13 or 14 rounds, now you can't say that entirely. Now at some point, the other team had to start playing properly, and you still managed to get some rounds, you still managed to make it close. So I'll give them credit. They did play them closer than I thought. But in a normal world, I think obviously they're not really at the level of those teams. I think that's unreasonable to say.
Yeah. The big story, the takeaway, I guess, one of them in terms of the narrative is obviously Fnatic winning yet another event. And they didn't do it in perhaps as polished a fashion as they have in other ones. This seemed to be a bit of a slog for them. They started by losing to EnVyUs, and there was question marks. They follow that up. They go 16-13 against EnVyUs, so it's a close game. They go 16-13 against gBots, a close game. Then they take some time off. They're starting to look a bit more convincing going into the last day. They get a 16-7 against EnVyUs, 16-7 against G2, 16-8 against G2. But then when they had the last 2 games against Astralis with the lives that were left, again, a 16-14 and a 16-13. So while this is still another impressive tournament win for Fnatic, and they're just continuing to bulldoze in 2016, this one looked like they were a little bit mortal. Why was that?
Obviously, EnVyUs are a fantastic team. So the EnVyUs results, I expected those should be close. And obviously, beforehand, we would have even said EnVyUs should probably beat them. It was certainly shocking that they had the gBots game that was so close. And then the Dignitas is the other one that was like really kind of a bit out there for me. Because, I know Dignitas is good. And that was Cobblestone, which has been kind of like the specialty map of Dignitas recently. In fact, one of the shames of this event, unfortunately, is because of the way EnVyUs went out. We never got to see EnVyUs versus Dignitas and Cobblestone, which to me would be a great game because they're both fantastic teams. I want to see if they could upset them again. So it's true. Fnatic did have some lesser games where it was a bit shocking how many rounds people got. But viewing the whole event, I've got to give them credit that they won on a lot of maps. They might have won on like 6 maps over the event versus the good teams. So that's big time. And again, the other thing is some of the other teams that were doing decently against them was obviously Astralis. I think Astralis is, like I say every episode, they're not the best, and they're probably not going to be the best, but they always play good teams close. They always get their rounds, and they always get in position, you know. So you got to give them credit. The thing about Fnatic was they actually still have that same quality they do before, which is that you can never actually tell in this new Fnatic who's going to be good in each game. All you can be certain of is if you give them 3 games, Olofmeister is definitely going to be there for 1 or 2 of the games. Like that's a certainty. Crim's going to be pretty consistent, but you never know when it's going to be Dennis who has the big map, when Olofmeister is going to have the not so good map, because that happened. Like in the first game against EnVyUs, Olofmeister was pretty off. He was kind of average, you know. Then he came back in the next game, he was beasting it. So I think that's probably the key thing about Fnatic and why they keep winning in a fashion where you still don't think like, I mean, consider they've won 5 events in a row. You don't look at it and go, wow, this is like NIP levels of domination, because actually when you see the games they're winning, it's like a bit disjointed and you never know who's showing up, and sometimes one player's playing badly but they win the game anyway. So I agree, it's not that polished, but if you keep winning, you're doing something right, clearly. And to win on that many maps is also a very good sign for the future, because I thought before they hadn't necessarily expanded the map pool enough. And I think you're muted. Is that just for me? Yeah, you are. You're muted somehow. I'm not sure how. Yeah, okay, we'll take a break for a second, and then Richard will fix that, and we will be back. By the numbers.
Hello, I'm back. Sorry about the sound problems. As I say, I've got a bit of a how should we say, a rustic setup at the moment. I'm running off a laptop, so it seems to be a bit temperamental. But anyway, the question I was going to ask you, Duncan, was just in terms of individual levels of performance. You know, we're seeing. I still think this looks like a very different to Fnatic, to like the golden era of Fnatic. You know, the people that are kind of performing. It seems to be. Obviously, Olofmeister is always going to be Olofmeister. I don't think Flusher had a particularly, great tournament, whereas usually he's been reliable in the past. I thought Dennis was good in key games at this event. JW was looking a bit more like his old self. Do you think that, I don't know, there's kind of like a sort of a different level of performance going on from some of the key players at the moment in Fnatic?
I mean, this is actually the area in which, to me, they really do resemble EnVyUs the most, like the current EnVyUs lineup, which is that what I've actually found so impressive about the new EnVyUs is that they didn't really just all slot into these excellent roles, even though on paper, actually, EnVyUs has good roles, but I think the roles are probably better defined than Fnatic. But they don't slot into the roles in terms of who has to carry the game. Like the great thing about them in terms of Apex is when Apex shows up, he wins the game no matter what. And when Apex doesn't show up, they can still win many of those games. That isn't like the win factor for them. It's this mad luxury they have. Likewise, Kenny S, they've won a bunch of the tournaments without Kenny S going crazy. But then when he does go absolutely ham, well, then you've got another crazy factor. So to me, that's what Fnatic's like at the moment. Like, yeah, you can easily point to Olofmeister and say he's like absolutely unreal, obviously. Like, he's still a complete beast, still very good at this event. And the key thing about Olofmeister is, I always say this about him, he's consistent, but not in the sense of like consistent every game. It's like when you just get a big enough sample size, the consistency's always there. He's always going to come with the big performance over a whole tournament. And if you give him enough maps, you give him enough rounds to play, he's going to show up. Like, he's the guy where the great thing about an Olofmeister game is he's not just going to have like 15 rounds in a row where he has no impact. If he's having a bad first 12 rounds, it'll still end up being an okay score because he'll then have like a crazy round where he kills 4 people and wins that whole round for you, gets it right into your pocket. So Olofmeister is there every game. The interesting thing about this tournament was this was actually one of the few tournaments I've seen in a long time where Crims was a bit more reserved, actually. He wasn't really going as crazy as he was before. I think, unless I'm mistaken, he might have been one of the people who complained about PCs. He might have been. Because supposedly there was one PC like on the stage setup or something like that. Whoever was on it was having bad games. Like Zipnix was on it one game and Apex was on it one game. And I think, unfortunately, that it wasn't even a secret. That was just the PC that wasn't very good. So I'll give Crims the credit there because he has had an unreal like 6 months or so. So it is weird that he had the kind of a reserved event. But then again, you can have a reserved event like that when Dennis shows up and has one of his best events he's had in Fnatic. And like we said this during StarLadder. At StarLadder, he had like an event where you could have believed they were playing 4v5 most of the tournament. But then he had one round against Luminosity that basically won them the game. And then in the final, he went absolutely bananas. And everyone obviously just remembers that image of him going crazy. So the fact he's had a good whole tournament is a very good sign for Fnatic. Because all those weaknesses we were pointing to before, well, now if literally every player in the team's like rotating and having tournaments where they're one of the best, it is going to be very hard to beat this team and stop them winning, or at least making finals, at least.
So the question is then, how does when we're now 3 months in to the year, we're at the end of February, so we're getting into that third month, and this lineup's been around a while. How do you think they measure up? Like compared to the old Fnatic.
See, this will sound harsh, but it is something we have said in the past. It's something that actually, from talking to other analysts, I think everyone agrees with me on this. No one thinks this is a biased opinion. The big problem is the reason why I don't think Fnatic is as sick as the old Fnatic or even the old NIP and some of these great teams is because if I'm honest, I look at the teams out there and at the moment it feels like the field is really ideally set up for them to be really good. Because at the moment, EnVyUs keeps getting beaten by Na'Vi, etc., and not having to play them. So EnVyUs would be their direct competition. Here's the thing. If over the last 5 tournaments they'd played EnVyUs 4 or 5 times, and then they'd beaten EnVyUs 2 or 3 times to win, that would be more convincing to me. The fact that they've only had to play them twice, and it was less important games, and they got beaten by them, makes it a bit more underwhelming when they win the tournament. So you go outside of EnVyUs, the most direct rival, obviously, and then the other 2 key teams that are in form right now is Luminosity and Na'Vi. Now, it just so happens Luminosity and Na'Vi are 2 teams that Fnatic has a great history against, going back as far as you want, and seems to perform and match up pretty well with right now. So when your 2 direct rivals are teams that you match up well with, and the team that can beat you, EnVyUs, isn't getting to play you, you can see how that's going to help you win a lot of tournaments. Outside of them, let's look at who else there is. So the obvious other 2 teams you always would mention is Virtus.pro, Astralis. VP is in such a terrible slump. They're not even going anywhere at the moment. And then Astralis is like in this hell-like purgatory where, I guess that doesn't make sense as a statement, but they're in this crazy purgatory where they're not bad enough to make a change and do something drastic, and they're just good enough to not win the tournament and make the semis each time still. So it's kind of, right now, I think the field is perfect for this team. In fact, I'll give you an example, okay? This actually has happened in the past in CS, where there was actually a very brief time, it was only like 2 or 3 months, where Lurpus's team, with the one that led Lurpus and Natu, a bunch of Finnish players, they were the best team in the world at the beginning of 2007. But the problem is they're not an all-time great team. And even at the time, they weren't playing fantastic CS. It's that at the time, a bunch of the other top teams had just made roster moves that they started to transition into.
And if I remember rightly, that team it didn't place first at any events, did it? It just had like
it was just some smaller events.
They were like top 3 at every event they went to, weren't they?
That was the year before. In fact, that's what happened basically. The year before, at the end of the year before, they were like the team that always placed third, right? Third or second. And then what happened is you came into the next year, they kept the same lineup pretty much. They added in Natu, but that wasn't much of a change. And what happened was all the other teams made a change. So you got like the NIP team that had been very good had split it up and gone elsewhere, and some gone into SK. Then Fnatic had downgraded a skilled player but brought in a team player, and eventually that Fnatic team would become the best team by the end of the year, but it took time to work him in. The MTW team, or NOA at the time, hadn't quite transitioned to becoming a better team. And so what happened is it was like the perfect storm for that Finnish team for a brief while to be on top. But the point is, when the other teams got their shit together and changed players and fixed things, it wasn't that this team got worse. They just naturally then took their place in the pack, and then eventually some people actually overtook them. So I don't think that it's the case that Fnatic will like fall in the same degree as that. Like, the analogy doesn't hold entirely true, but I do think that with certain teams, there are some changes that will happen where Fnatic will just become part of a pack of very good teams. That might seem bold because they've won 5 tournaments in a row, but I think, for example, I think EnVyUs is making inroads, and EnVyUs eventually is just not going to play Na'Vi at some point in time, and then they might be in a final versus Fnatic. So that immediately is going to be I can't wait for that. If we see EnVyUs Fnatic finals, that'd be sick. So there's one team. The obvious other team is Luminosity, because they still have been together a short enough time that there's still time for growth there. I think they can still figure some shit out, so they could get to that level, and then they could be doing some interesting things there. And then the third team is obviously Na'Vi, and at the moment, it's kind of like hard to say that because Na'Vi have lost so many times to Fnatic, but I do feel like with how much Flamey has improved over the last few months, like it's like literally getting now so that it's more rare that Flamey doesn't have a good tournament than that he does now. It's like inverted now. And when I was thinking about this, I actually think that you have to credit that to Starix. Because if you remember, the storyline with Starix was he was like in-game coaching Flamey alone. Then he became the in-game leader, and almost exactly the time he becomes the in-game leader, Flamey is then integrated into the team better and is having more good performances in the team itself. So I can't, like, maybe that's a coincidence, but it feels like there's a correlation there. So I think if Flamey is going to keep playing at this level, I think eventually Na'Vi's going to do it. I don't know when it'll be, but I think eventually Na'Vi's going to have that tournament where it all works and they catch Fnatic. So I think add all this together. I don't know if it'll be next month or it'll be 2 months from now, but eventually I think there'll be other people winning events and people won't look at Fnatic like they're the dominant team.
Where does Astralis figure in this then? They were the runners-up in Barcelona, had some very close games against Fnatic. I know ever since they've kind of, well, just before that they kind of moved to Astralis and announced their organization, they'd gone off the boil. We speculated that maybe this might be because of all the stuff that was going on in the background. Then they announced themselves as Astralis. They went to some events, weren't up to the standard. You know, Device hasn't had a great start at 2016. Considering that when we got to the end of 2015, we were like, well, this guy's overtaken, Olofmeister as the best player in the world, consistently posting 20s to the scoreboard. So they had a very close couple of games against Fnatic here and looked pretty good throughout the tournament in general. Had a very convincing win against EnVyUs. So are Astralis back? Are they going to be back in the reckoning now? Because you haven't talked about them when we're talking about this pack of great teams.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. Like, the two I didn't really mention, as I said, was Virtus.pro and Astralis, because Virtus.pro is just, like I said, a straight-up slump. Right now, they have no clue what the fuck's going on or how to fix it. So I can't address that because they're so bad. But Astralis, like I say, the frustrating thing about them is that it's not that they've been really bad. They're this close all the time. They're always on the brink of it. But the fact that you always lose in that scenario suggests that it's not some simple tweak that, like...
We're not going to get back to the choking conversation, though, are we?
No, it's not about... the thing. I don't think it's choking at this point in time. I think at that point... Because that's the other thing. If it was choking, you could just point to, like, a player. Like, for example, Device had good stats for this tournament. He's had a couple of good tournaments now in a row. He's had, like, 3 tournaments in a row or something now with, like, solid stats. I mean, in general, as I mentioned before, though, Xyp9x did have the bad PC, and he had that one game where even he said he was pretty bad. The problem is Xyp9x has been like, when Device was having his problems, I think that Xyp9x kind of carried the load a little bit from him. That's why they still got a lot of the top 4s, and he didn't have a very good tournament. But as I said, maybe he was on the bad PC. So when we're talking about these players, here's the problem. If Apex has a bad tournament, says the PC shit, I might think, I don't know about that, mate. You might just be having an off game and you're looking for what it is. But when Xyp9x and Crims both have an off tournament and they both say I was on a shit PC, I have to kind of give them the credit because these guys are really consistent. And in general, they're not like mad whiners like that. Like, actually, it's quite rare that someone like Crims would say something like
well,
that.
and then exactly. Known for their consistency, really. That's like the one defining factor of Crims. You know, he's never going to have a bad tournament. And you're right. I can't think of a time I've ever heard them really moan about stuff, like not publicly. So yeah, there was definitely something up there, but still, you know, everyone's kind of in the same boat to a degree, you know, so it's not optimal, but yeah, so I mean, getting back to Astralis, I mean, are they going to win tournaments this year?
See, it feels like at the moment, no, not least because there's more competitors to win tournaments. So I feel like the other teams either have better lineups or are in better form. So like right now, it feels like there are 4 teams who probably would beat them, like at least enough of them to make them lose in the semis or in a final. Maybe they can get to a final. That's certainly possible. The problem is, first of all, when I looked at the lineup, this looked like the old team before when it was Dignitas. This was like Device and do pre-show, let's go, and then Cajun B, unfortunately, wasn't really there. Like he had a good game show, but he wasn't really here at this tournament when it had, in theory, some of the better teams later on. Also, you have to say this as well. This is the only tournament they've made a final of in quite a long time. But first of all, they made a final thanks in side part due to that fuckery where G2 helped Envy have to play Fnatic over and over again. So you essentially were going to almost and certainly eliminate a team that would have beaten them in the semis. So they got to a final. That already felt dodgy because of the side circumstances. Then add in, it is the best of 1 tournament. Even if you had to play out all the lives in the end, so it looks like a best of 5, it's not really. And so the problem is, we've always known, here's the thing about Astralis, they've also always been very good at having close games, but also winning a map in a series. They can do that, certainly. The problem with Astralis is always when you have that building pressure of the series. You know, when you have map 1 and it's close, but you lose it. And you go, it doesn't matter. Map 2, we come back. It's our map. We play well. We win it. It's close as well, but we win it, right? 1-1. Then all the pressure's on you on the 3rd map. And then when it gets close, you're like, that's where you can even think to yourself afterwards, oh, but if we'd have just closed it in 2, we'd never had to worry about that. Best of 1 tournaments is different. And so I even think, I'll put it this way, I'm not even taking the conclusion that because Fnatic won 2 out of 3 against EnVyUs, that Fnatic's broken their EnVyUs bad matchup and that they're just going to be EnVyUs from now on. It's best of 1s there as well. So I do think you have to take into account the best of 1 nature. And I think, unfortunately, that probably helped Astralis in this case.
Also, Dignitas, you know, we're talking about Danes. Dignitas are the team that people are really having a look at. They're the ones that are kind of coming up and maybe breaking away from that kind of tier 2 mediocrity, getting into the elite level teams. Had some very good deep runs lately, you know, looking good online. A lot of, you know, scrutiny as well on some of the players. Obviously talking about Config there. But, you know, they're doing particularly well. But against Astralis, they seem to get found out a little bit. And I always think this is one of these issues, actually, that comes, it all sort of stems from their in-game leader. Like, I know MSL quite well, known him many years. And there are certain teams in his mind, I think he believes that he can't beat. And generally when they go up against the kind of traditionally the better Danes, they tend to underperform. And the other team, bizarrely, is NIP. He's got a really massive mental block when it comes to playing them. You know, he honestly believes that they can't win. And this was reflected in recently online in the ESL ESEA Pro League. So what did you make of Dignitas this time around? I mean, were they just unfortunate in the fact that they had to go head-to-head against their fellow Danes? You know, were you impressed overall, or do you think they're starting to get found out a little bit now?
Dignitas is good. Their big problem, I think, is that, here's the thing, aside from Cobblestone, which I do legit think they're like a real, like that's like a specialist map for them. You can put them on Cobblestone against almost anyone in the world, they'll have a chance. That's how good they are. But once you get beyond that, here's the thing, they do have a deep map pool. Like, they're going to be decent on all the maps, but outside of Cobblestone, I don't see them as having like any really strong maps. They're just decent on them all. So it's going to be hard when they play people on other maps, especially when you look at a team like TSM. Well, they're not TSM. I always call TSM Astralis. Astralis was famously good on many maps. And the only teams that could make them think they're not is like teams that are specialists on those. So okay, maybe Na'Vi can convince them, nah, maybe we don't want to play train anymore. Maybe people from EnVyUs can convince them, you know what, maybe our Inferno isn't that good. They don't have any of those problems against Dignitas. So for me, Astralis has no pressure when they play Dignitas. They're not worried about that. They know like they know they're better. Dignitas knows they're better. And there's also the problem that for Dignitas right now, a big concern for me is that Kirby did it again. He had another really good LAN. Here's the problem. Him and Config can't do it at the same time. So Kirby's 2 lands didn't match with the 1 land that Config was super good. So it's like if you're going to take turns and only one person hits like the star level, it's going to be hard to beat fucking Astralis. They got a lot of good aimers.
Are you implying they're sharing an Organa account, Duncan? Is that what you're saying? Because I think that's pretty controversial and edgy if you're saying that.
No, I think I would put I would vouch for Kirby as being entirely legit, Rich.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can see that for sure.
It's all about how you say things, mate. It's all about how you say things.
But yeah, I mean, look, I think it would be a shame if Dignitas were to drop off. I think a lot of a lot of their kind of potency lately seems to stem from something that's a little bit unlikely. Like, I think one of the standout players, obviously along with Config, and yeah, Kirby has stepped it up, but I've been really surprised by how good Rubinho's been. Like, really surprised. He was somebody that kind of went under the radar a little bit for me. Like, I didn't really rate him. In past lineups he's been in, like London Conspiracy and Copenhagen Wolves. But he actually has been playing really, really well in this Dignitas team. And, the worry for me is will that continue? Is that part of his ongoing development as a player, or is he just in a purple patch?
I think he's going to be fine. Like, I think what he's doing now, the thing about him now is he's stable. And so actually, he's the dream for MSL because he got a guy now who's stable. And if you're a tactician, that means you got a known quantity. You know what you can do with that. You know where you can put that piece on the map, what it's going to do, where they're going to hold on CT, what you can expect from them. That's the dream when you're the in-game leader. So basically, MSL, like most in-game leaders, should know that he himself is the same. He should know, well, I know what I can do, and I'm very realistic about my own expectations. So now I've got 2 players already that I can account for, and I can start to build a system. His issue in terms of Dignitas is I think tactically they're good. I think they've got a couple of solid players like this. So I think they've got the pieces to be solid. And they've got this nice surprise map, Cobblestone, that a lot of people play, and so people either have to deal with them on it or ban it out. So they can get a little bit of an edge there. The big issue for them is that where they're going to get the firepower from. Because like I say, at the moment, Kirby's doing it sometimes, Config does it another time. So their issue is they don't have like sustained firepower. And so basically, beyond the odd upset, like winning a map, it's going to be hard to actually win series. That's where their downfall is going to be. Like, for me, I think they've got all the pieces now to be a top 10 team for the rest of the year. I think they could actually do it, and I think they could vary in the top 10 depending on how they, like, if they have Kirby and Config shop for this tournament, they can be like a 7th best team. If it doesn't go that well, drop down to like 9th best. The problem I see is kind of like a Luminosity problem before they made their roster change. It's like they don't have quite enough firepower that if you keep putting them in best of 3s against EnVyUs and Astralis and these sorts of teams, they don't have enough firepower that I see them winning many of those series. Right.
So G2 are another one of those teams that are kind of, floating around out there. We've talked at length about how, we're not really sold on them. We think they're kind of going to be those perennial underachievers. But they showed a lot of spirit at this tournament. Their first game was an overtime against Astralis on Dust 2, which has traditionally been, very good for the Danes in the past. They obviously lost at 19-17. They went on, they made mincemeat of one of the Spanish teams. They had a convincing win on Overpass, which seems to be a map that they're increasingly improving on against Vexed. Then they managed to beat Astralis on Dust 2. And of course, then they got manhandled by Fnatic 2 maps in a row. But I thought this was a much better showing for them. It was as good as they've looked. I mean, certainly since the move. What do you make of where they are right now? I mean, RPK seemed to come back a little bit. Shox had some amazing games with the ones that I managed to catch while I've been traveling. What's been the secret of G2's improvement here, and is it something that can be sustained?
I mean, one of the things about this tournament was that it's funny. I think we actually commented on this last episode. I think it was last episode, right, where there was that one round online where RPK like headshotted everyone on Cobblestone. And everyone was like, RPK is back. And it's like, come on, mate. It was one online. And it was one round as well. It wasn't even like a whole game. But RPK has been actually making some progression. I think he has been gradually improving a bit. I mean, one thing I've always cited on this show was that this will sound weird, but one of the reasons why even in their down period, I gave a lot of credit to Existence is I told everyone I had this spy who went out and they got me like the comms of the Titan team when they went to those ESL events, and I got them to give me some subtitles and tell me what they're saying at certain times. And what I found was Existence was like microing RPK around the map. Like he was telling him, right now, you go forwards, pull back a little bit here. Oh, there's going to be a guy on your left. Like stuff that like is above and beyond what any in-game leader is doing. The player's supposed to know that stuff himself. And so essentially, he was treating RPK as though RPK is just like a bot. Like he can aim, but he needs to be positioned to be able to know when to get the right fight. Well, that's what I feel like is where the progression might have started to come in. Because I don't think RPK is some moron who can never learn the game. Obviously, he's been fantastic at CSGO early and particularly at Source. So I think it's more like you have to give him time. Well, consider how long he's been in the team now. It's only just over a year. He's only been in the team just over 1 year of full CSGO. So that's not ridiculous to suggest that after 1 year of CSGO, now he may be getting a feel for the game. He's starting to go understand when someone's going to be there and someone's going to be behind him 2 seconds later without having to be told or have someone else read the game for him. So I think maybe that's one of the aspects that there's growth that we wouldn't have seen in the team before. Because the big problem with the rest of the
team,
to
be fair, having stood behind Existence like in many Counterstrike Source tournaments in days gone by, he's always had a tendency to do this, to micro the players. RPK was always one in particular because, again, there's no way of framing this without people losing their shit, right? But the reality is, I think there was a fucking, there was this real sense that like RPK was all aim and wasn't necessarily smart. Like there was times he'd play clutch situations suboptimally, but his aim would just get him out of trouble. He was just that good in Source. And he was routinely like MVP, like almost every tournament, because he was just posting these huge numbers, like just absolutely ridiculous numbers. But even then, Existence would, like say, be microing him and other players in the team. You know, back when NBK first broke through and was a young guy that they brought in a very games, bit of an unknown quantity. One of the things that Existence did was he took responsibility for basically saying, okay, in a game, I'm going to talk you through how to play. And this was why Kevin's game used to suffer so much, because he literally was playing for everybody else. He would be looking at the mini map. Okay, you need to do this. You need to do this. And meanwhile, he hasn't got his full attention on what he's doing. The only in-game leader I've really seen who plays that similar style to that degree is gBots. It's the only thing that I think is even vaguely comparable. Because when he was in Mouse Sports, he would do the exact same thing, just micro all the players. So I mean, I don't know if it's something that Existence does because he has to, whether it's a bad habit at this point, whether he's just got a team around him who are kind of thinking, actually, this is fucking shit. I wish he'd shut up, but fuck it. We're all bros here. Like, I don't really know where the lay of the land is, but it's something that he's always historically done.
And then the other two factors for this team was, well, like you said, it wasn't that Shox had like a monster event, but he had a couple of games that were big time games. And particularly, he's still like, there's something about Dust 2 that just fits that guy's playing style. Like he's just at home there. It's like that's like his fucking office. He just sets up. He knows where he's going to go next. He knows like the flow of when to move between spots. So he had like a classic Dust 2 Shox performance against Astralis, and he was pretty much the reason they won that game. And then the other guy, just to list one more person, is who you just mentioned, Existence. I don't know what has happened to Existence, but he's been having like a bunch of games where in general, his actual output of frags is like way above what it should be for his rep. Because remember, his rep is supposed to be, oh yeah, shit player. He's the opposite of the RPK.
He's just a brain in a job.
Only a brain, yeah. And the joke is, since he's not that good as a player, but he has to be in the server, you know, we have to have the 4 other people have to be so good that him and his brain mean that they win 4v5, but by being so smart and he, you know, well, now he's fragging like a pretty good clip. And as we've seen, everyone who says all that stuff like, oh, we have to give the in-game leader time out, nothing's been doing terribly since he took over in-game leader. Now, Existence is still the in-game leader. He's doing pretty well here. So I think this has been, I'm surprised actually overall with G2. I really thought this was a team where they were in a rut for obvious reasons, like, but much of the players are probably at the end of their career. Like, I doubt some of them are going to last out a year. So I thought, like, this is the end days. They're just playing it out. I have to say, in general, almost everyone has a little positive sign out for them. I mean, Scream didn't play well at this tournament, but at game shows, he had much better form than we've seen. So almost everyone on the team, except Smiths, basically, has some sort of weird little revival going on, or some maybe tiny little light that could be something. As it isn't totally something yet, and this is best of ones again, but it's strange. I almost feel like G2 is becoming a decent team.
I'm not going to accept it. I'm not.
I know. I don't want it. Here's the thing. I don't want it to be true because I keep looking at the lineup and it's like, actually, this shouldn't be a good team. This should not work. I don't know how you do it. Basically, they can't keep getting away with this, Rich. They can't. The Jesse Pinkman moment. They can't keep getting away with this.
So look, I'm not going to talk about EnVyUs so much at this event because we talk a lot about EnVyUs almost every show. They were kind of something or nothing here. I mean, you're talking about how you feel they need to be getting a finals with Fnatic, and they could be sort of like the big rivalry. But of course, Fnatic did beat them about 3 times here. So it wasn't up to their high standards, but it certainly wasn't like a terrible outing for them either.
Let's be real. You get 3 lives in the tournament.
Yeah.
You lost 2 of them to Fnatic, who won the tournament, still beat Fnatic in a game. And then the other loss was to Astralis, who came second in the tournament, and it was on Mirage, which is one of the few maps you'd actually give to the Astralis guys or give them a good chance on right now against EnVyUs. So add it all up, and I don't think this was a terrible event for EnVyUs. Like, I don't think it's like some step back and like what are they going to do? I think this was just one where, unfortunately, people put them against Fnatic. By the way, the genius of this tournament, I actually don't like the format that much. It's okay for a fun tournament, but unfortunately, I've noticed in terms of the format, it doesn't tend to play out in as fun a manner as you imagine. Like, you look at the format, like, oh, you got these lives, and you put people against each other. Yeah, but that's not what anyone does. You know what everyone does? Everyone just sits back like a little fucking tax accountant. Like, how can I do a move now that would make me have a better chance of winning $10 more? And they don't set up the awesome games. Like, they don't say, oh, guys, you just won a game. Can you, like, Dignitas don't say, hey, guys, put us against Envy on Cobblestone and we'll bash them in and get an upset. They don't do that. They just go, oh, you know what? Let's all just put EnVyUs versus Fnatic over and over again. Because if one of them gets loads of their lives gone, we've got a better chance of finishing second. Like, unfortunately, it basically is it's an example of how like ideal situations never work out because of human nature. That's like this tournament for me.
Well, what they need to start doing is they need to treat this exhibition tournament like the almost kind of farce that it is. It's not a serious tournament in that sense. It's meant to be exhibition games, a bit of fun. Yeah, there's prize money up for grabs. Yeah, teams want to win. But I think what you need here is a Vince McMahon kind of character, or rather now like a Triple H kind of character that's just going to come in at some point with a microphone. I'm sure Carmack will love this. He's a fucking just swagger in with a mic and go, you thought you were going to play Fnatic. Well, turns out bullshit. You're going to end up playing, and they bring out like some final boss, some amazing team who weren't even supposed to be at the event. And this is going to be for 3rd place. And I just drop the mic and, they should just do shit like that. Like, why not, right? You're already playing with the fucking borders of credibility. So why not have like some evil competition commissioner going in who just keeps throwing spanners in the works? Like, okay, you're going to play Fnatic, but it's going to be on Militia or just something retarded, Like,
I mean, here's the thing, Rich. Obviously, I don't do ESL events, but this is obviously where I was obviously born for this role, Rich. What I need to be is I am like the commissioner of this thing. And my aim is because I'm just going to put the matchups that are really good. But what happens is before each round of matches, instead of picking the matches themselves or deciding what they're going to do and making alliances, I allow them all to talk to each other first. So they're allowed to trash talk each other first. Then they can all appeal to King Thorin. They can all appeal to King Thorin's wisdom. What happens is if they can make a compelling enough argument, I might put them on some. So if one of them says, for example, if I say to MSL, like, listen, MSL, I'm thinking actually, mate, of putting you against Fnatic on Inferno now. And he goes, no, put me against EnVyUs and I'll show you that MBK isn't a good leader on Cobblestone. If he says that, I'll go, whoa, okay. Yeah. And then I know he's told me the entertainment factors there. Then I set him up on Envy and there we go. And then afterwards, that's basically go full WWE, make it all entertainment, make it the matches you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, because like you say, I definitely think that's the way they should do it. Because if you leave it down to the players, obviously they're gonna, they make all these weird little alliances, and they don't even really hype up the alliances in this. Like, it's never like, okay, this is the alliance that's going on. They don't make like an announcement video. Like, there's no NWO shit going on, right? Like, they're not all wearing matching t-shirts. Like, wow, that's what you need. And that's
the mistake. Like, here's the thing. I really do think, here's another way you can fix the tournament, okay? If you're going to make these alliances, all you have to do is you don't tell each other the stuff, but you have to constantly communicate privately to some sort of tournament director, like what your plan is. So, for example, when G2 did the backstab on EnVyUs, that's where there should have been all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, that's not their music. And it should have been like, and then they come out like, hello, brother, mon frère. doing more or some shit like that. It should have been like that, shouldn't it? Like, should have been like theatrical as fuck.
Yeah, exactly. ESL, far be it from us to tell you how to, improve things. But definitely, I think if you did this, I think it would blow the fuck up. I think people would like it. And there's nothing wrong with it. The games are still legit. You still got to go on a server and you still got to play. It's not like the outcome's rigged. But if you're going to have a fun fucking tournament, like have fun with it and make it entertaining. Because, there were some good games here, but it wasn't a massively entertaining tournament. I'm not going to remember ESL Barcelona, come next year probably.
Also, listen, I like to make compromises, Rich. So I'm going to appeal to Carmack's better nature. Notice the way I said that, better nature. So what I'm going to do is, listen, Carmack, we're going to put some of the stuff you like in, mate. So actually, instead of just having 3 lives, but they don't mean anything, you just lose a life. When you lose the first life, you get cream pied in the face. When you lose the second life, you get thrown into a gunge tank. When you lose the third life, you get your Schengen visa revoked. Oh, wait, I'll think of another one for that one, Rich. I'll think of another one for that one.
I thought you were going to say something else there. Like, did you get your shit? Oh, like, it's going to go full training day again.
Shit pushed in. No.
Just going full sniper on me, like. So, but anyway, so, there was some high points, there was some low points, but I definitely think the format could be improved and refined and made into a much more entertaining outcome. Now, while we've been talking about entertainment, obviously one of the things that we dedicated a large portion of the last show to was talking about all the Freakazoid drama and blah, blah, blah. That's all been resolved now. And I just had to ask you about the punishment. I had to ask you about the punishment because I just think you must have been chuckling to yourself in your cold room. Just laughing at yourself in your coat, right? Because he's had to go to a bullying seminar.
Here's the genius of it, okay? So the problem is there's an old joke, okay? I'm trying to think I can't remember which comedian said this, okay? But he essentially used to say that it was ridiculous that homosexuality, when it was banned, outlawed, as a result, if obviously this is in rare cases, but in theory, they could send you to prison for it. And he goes, yeah, let's lock them all up. They won't do any fucking in there. It's like you're locked up with other men and some other men who are going to be gay because that's all people you put in prison. Therefore, if you're against that, you're sort of making the perfect scenario for that. So you can see where I'm going with this, Rich. Remember what?
I think Carmack actually wrote that joke. So.
Maybe he did.
I think his bit.
Problem is, he wrote it in 2015, and he was trying to appeal as to why they should actually raise the gay consent age to an infinity symbol. That was his sign of male love, So anyway, so. 2 interconnected arseholes, kind of like our show, Rich, the new title for our show. Anyway, so okay. Anyway, back on track. The point I'm making with the joke is that everyone who was trying to be on Freak's side was saying, well, you have to realize the thing about Freak is he didn't know he was bullying because the thing is he hates bullies. What he thought is, I'm the guy who beats up bullies. If I see a bully, the first thing I do is bully him. So what they've done is your punishment for doing so, you will attend a seminar filled with bullies. I feel like this could go bad here, guys. I hope he's not actually going to a seminar. This could go south, guys. This could really go south.
I can just picture Freakazoid, like they'll be doing it'll be like in prison, they're in Gen Pop. He's going to be there in his muscle vest, just on the yard. He'll be talking to these kids like, what are you in for? It'll be like some little 10-year-old. I called someone in class a fag. And it's going to be like, yeah, man, I feel your pain, bruh. Feel your pain. We should make a gang, and he's gonna give him like a Cloud9 shirt.
I thought you were gonna go Rich. See, here's the problem. Are you ready?
I definitely don't want to go that way.
Here's what was going to happen, Rich. So he goes to the anti-bullying seminar, and like I say, it's all the other bullies, right? So he gets there, and all of a sudden, it's all the other people he's bullied over the years who were the bullies. It's all the people he was getting back. They're finally at the seminar. So they're all saying to him, like, Freak, we're going to fuck you up later, man. When we see you up left side of the comms, we're going to get you, man. You're going down. So all of a sudden, I think you know how I'm going here, right? He's in the lunchroom, and he just gets a cream pie. You ready? He gets a cream pie, and he throws it right in that guy's face, and he goes, I'm not locked in here with you. You're all locked in here with me.
Freak Shack.
Cream pie is literally the worst possible thing
definitely.
Happen,
yeah, well. I'm not. There's an obvious follow-up there that I'm going to avoid. Family, sure, but anyway. So, real talk, right? Should professional Counterstrike players be going to anti-bullying seminars? Because I don't even accept the definition that it was bullying to begin with. I do not accept that it was bullying. I think it was trash talk. I think it was shit talk. I don't think that's the same as bullying. I think bullying's where you make someone's life a sustained fucking misery and they can't get away from it because of the social setting that they're in. You know, like
when Adren was the in-game leader of Team Liquid.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Or, you know, when you have to do fucking DreamHack events, you know, you can't get away from it. It's just sustained misery. Can I have some bottled water, please? No, get fucked, motherfucker. Go out and fill for 40 minutes with a dry throat, you cunt. You know, like that is more akin to bullying than just some guy coming on and going, get a tan, you pasty cunt. You know what I mean? Like, because obviously it's an observation for starters. Like, simple as a bit pale. I just don't accept that it was fucking bullying at all. So for him to be in an anti-bullying seminar, like, is that too far? Or is that actually what we should be doing now? Like, every time a player fucks up, do we need to donate to charity? Is that where we're at?
No, my problem with that is I can always tell you, just speculating cynically, that they tried to go too far themselves, Cloud9, to hopefully try and appease all these idiots who were going too far in what they were responding to with Freakazoid, as you wrote in your article, like saying they're going to kill him and all that stuff. So they're thinking, well, if we show we really gave this guy a good scene to, they're going to let him go. Whereas the problem with that is I don't like that as a precedent. I think what you should do is your punishment in every scenario in life should always be fair and appropriate to what it was. Now, if someone says, yeah, but I want blood, I want more, well, that shows what a fucked up person you are, mate. We don't appeal to that, and we don't give you any credence or give you any say in the matter. So if you want to be fucked up, you have to, I think, here's the thing. In American culture, you can't do this, but you can acknowledge that someone was wrong without accepting all the premises of all the people who hate them. Like, because you don't have to accept, like if someone, for example, was involved in like statutory rape or something, where it's just that the person in terms of age was younger, but they weren't actually raped. If all the opponents just kept removing the word statutory, like he's a rapist, you wouldn't be like, oh, since he is a rape, you'd go, no, he broke this law and here's the rule as what we're going to do. But we don't conflate him with a rape. Like, you wouldn't give ground on that. But in this way, I think, unfortunately, to try and make people forget about the issue, they've tried to just they've ceded all the ground, basically, haven't they?
Yeah. Well, I think
at this point in time, I'm surprised they didn't just offer like simple one clean punch in his gut at a fucking LAN or something. Like, no clenching, Ryan. No clenching.
Here's the thing, right, to use your phrase, and it's going to fucking segue into another segment we're going to talk about in a second. So the idea that, Simple is a victim and Cloud9 have done this in any way to appease Team Liquid, absolute nonsense, because, of course, Cloud9 and Team Liquid are basically, two heads of the same hydra, if you like, right? Like, there's this group in NA of team owners. We've talked about it many times on this show, and they're all basically interlocking. They all work together. They all help each other out, right? So when this happened, when this went down, they actually reached out to fucking, Team Liquid and Cloud9 did and sort of worked together with them on how best to put this resolution. That's why Simple's there going, yes, Freakazoid, I accept your apology about me having no friends and needing a tan. I accept it unreservedly. We are all friends now. He's not doing that because he really thinks he probably still thinks Freakazoid's a fucking asshole, right? But obviously Team Liquid are like, how can we help Cloud9? Now, I spoke to some sources over at Cloud9. And literally, I think it was like 3 or 4 of their major sponsors had been contacted, like pretty much en masse. There was like dozens and dozens of emails that have been sent, if not hundreds, right, to overall to them, basically demanding things like, well, we're going to boycott your product unless you lean on Cloud9 and make them drop Freakazoid. As long as Freakazoid is playing for Cloud9, we will never use your service again. I've been a lifelong supporter of your product, and I can no longer bring myself to buy this particular brand of mouse because, your Freakazoid is a bully now, right? Like, just all of this nonsense. So they were under immense pressure to come out and do this coordinated thing, and that's exactly what they did. And you're right, they ceded all the ground, but I think at that point you fucking have to. Because, while and again, I was told some sponsors said, look, we've got your back on this. We know it's a storm in a teacup. Don't worry. Other sponsors were seriously like, what are you letting your players get away with here? Are your players actually being monitored, and are they behaving in an appropriate fashion for something we'd like to sponsor? There was a lot of pressure. It could have had a huge financial impact on the organization, and obviously by extension to Freakazoid himself. So that's why they did it this way.
Like that. What tilts me about that is that I know that the sponsors will react that way. I could have predicted that part. The problem is we never have to worry about what that sponsor thinks if those idiot fans don't purposely fuck with something like that. People who do that, by the way, I don't care. Here's exactly where society fails. is that those people who contacted all those sponsors aren't sociopaths. They aren't all people who, like, if you met them in the street, you'd know this guy's fucked up. Odds are they probably go to school with you. They're probably your work colleagues. So the big problem with society is, I'm sure they have friends who they may be even told that they did that, like, oh, fuck that Freakazoid, I contacted them. And the problem is their friend probably doesn't like fully agree with that himself, but he probably just thinks, oh, it's a bit awkward. So he just doesn't say anything. If in society his friend was just like, you're a fucked up dude, like that's so wrong, man. And I'm still friends with you, but that's fucked up, mate. If that person, that's the only guy who could really get to that person. And unfortunately, that person is the one who just quietly sort of goes, oh, this is a bit awkward. I hope we just go on to another topic now. And that's how those idiots get away with it and continue on in real life. So, yeah, I think it's a massive shame in that particular respect. Like, I don't like that at all, that people like that can fuck with people's jobs.
And also like our show a little bit, where it's like, you just think, God, this is awkward. Can we just move on to the next topic, Richard, please? Please stop grilling me about this. But yeah, I just thought it was weird. And of course, again, but proportionately, we still haven't seen anything like this from Luminosity, and there was even weird intimations of violence around there, which I don't think there was with Freakazoid.
Here's the thing, Rich.
Not quite so much.
There's a famous line from the Bible that the idea is, in the future, when paradise arrives, one of the things that is a sign that paradise is here is that because there'll be no more war, they'll turn plows into they'll turn, like, what was the line? I think they'll turn swords into plowshares. And the notion was you'd take your swords, you'd melt them down, you'd make farming equipment, and you'd be peaceful at that point in time. So likewise, I think as an act in line with what Freakazoid had to do, I think that Dead and Taco should have to go to Brazil and get a load of disused bullets and melt them down and make them into grills, dentures, so that people can literally bite the bullet. There we go. You like that?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Setup was a bit extended, I can't lie.
Yeah. Whenever there's a biblical setup, I'm always like, get ready for it. That's one group you haven't offended. You haven't offended any religious people yet. I think you need to work on that. We need to get some religious-related death threats in. Since you've already Brazil, Poland, we've got that down.
I've been thinking of saying something about the Prophet Muhammad because I just want to break after all the Brazilians and the Poles contacting me. That'd feel like a summer. That'd feel like a fucking visiting like Coney Island and going on the roller coasters at this point.
Extreme Islam. Oh, this is great. This is great. Someone sent me a cartoon of me being beheaded. That's all right. That's quite relaxed actually by some of the things I got from Brazilian fans. But anyway, so here's the thing I wanted to talk about, right? So you must have seen this. Team Liquid obviously have acquired Kusta, so we know that now. That's out there. That's announced. We're going to get into the minutiae of how that happened. I'm investigating how the deal was done because it looked like there might have been a last-minute thing that Shanghaied it. But they have got their man, but they can't use him at this upcoming qualifier. So they announced that Mo was going to be a stand-in. Okay. So Mo's going to be a stand-in. Mo, who plays for Echo Fox. Then it was just announced a couple of days ago. Actually, I can't be a stand-in. I can't do it. I've got commitments to Echo Fox. So he's obviously had to drop out, and it now leaves Team Liquid kind of having to scramble to get this fifth player. And it looks like, based on what we've seen on Reddit from people who just staring at streams all day and doing odd shots because their lives are so amazing, that that they're going to bring in could be anybody, like from the American teams. I even heard that maybe Adrian might get brought in, which
I think someone on stream said that. I think Simple said on stream it would be Adrian.
So, which I know you're going to have a field day with that topic, but that's not what I want to talk about just yet. I want to talk about this on and off thing with Mo and what you made of it.
Okay, just on the Mo topic alone, not the broader implications of it. If I had to speculate, I think it's fairly obvious to me that he just said yes too early without thinking of all the issues of what it could mean. Because, like, maybe he said yes without asking his team. Maybe he said yes without understanding. Because remember, he hasn't played top-level CS. He hasn't played in a lot of the tournaments, so maybe he doesn't know the rules. Because the big problem with this situation, the reason why they had to look to Mo, is that people have to address this. This major-minor system is fucked. It doesn't work. Because on one hand, it does stop what they want to stop, which is what they're worried about, is that in the CIS minor, what would happen is Navi's already qualified for the next major. So they're worried that in the CIS minor, Flamey will go and play with some mates and help them win the minor and then just go back to Navi anyway. And as a result, there'll be a worse team in the make it to the qualifier who doesn't qualify for the major, who could have been replaced by a better team. So they have stopped that. They've successfully stopped what they wanted to stop. The problem is they've also massively handicapped other teams for these qualifiers and majors, because what they've essentially done is if you play in the qualifier now and you win the qualifier for this major, you then can't play in the next minor, even if you were only a stand-in. So the problem is it's going the other way that's fucked up. You can't take a player from a minor team and use him only once now and let him go back. Whereas that's not what we were ever trying to stop. No one was ever trying to stop Mo from standing in for Team Liquid, where he's a worse player and he wouldn't want to be in that team. Well, he couldn't be in that team anyway, and they don't want him. So the problem is they can't make it work the other way. So I think they need to this is where having a commissioner would be great. Because what there should be is there should be exceptions. So in this scenario, Mo and Team Liquid would go to the I mean, by the way, it wouldn't be Mo if they had these exceptions. You'd have another player, like it'd be Alu, or it'd be, it'd be some not that great player, like some old player who's just sticks around. But you'd go to the commission, you'd go, listen, we're obviously not trying to get around the other rules. We're not going the other way. We're not sending Simple down to play in the minor with Splice or someone like that. What we're trying to do is we're just trying to get a stand in for this one qualifier because we can't use this guy. So can we please have an exception for this one? And the commission would see it as all legit and let it happen for that one tournament. I think that's the obvious way to go forward. Because at the moment, it meant that they had no choices. Like, you have to realize they literally could. Here's the part people don't understand. They couldn't even get people who did badly at the minors, because they're the people who more than anything want to play in the next minor. So if you get that guy and you play with him and you succeed, he now can't play in the minor when he goes away and isn't on your team. So you literally couldn't even have bad players. Like, they literally had to look for streamers and people or retired pros. That's the only people left they could get for this 5th place. So I think there's a problem there. Now, maybe the solution in the future is you have to literally have a sub on your team or something like that. Maybe you could do it like League of Legends style. You declare one sub and it goes like that. But I think, unfortunately, the system is really handicapping this right now.
Yeah, and it is a bit of a mess, in terms of having to use stand-ins for anything. It cheapens the event, in my opinion. I don't think anyone particularly wins in this, especially in this particular scenario. But I did want to just highlight a little bit of the reasons why it was on and off, and I just think it's really interesting that this is an ongoing political issue, like a lot of things in esports. And obviously, you'll remember from League of Legends, we had all this Visa-geddon that was caused. And I think I talked about it on this show before, how basically these owners in NA, the ones we've just talked about, basically they felt threatened by Rick Fox coming in to the space because obviously he's a guy who's made a lot of money from the NBA, established presence in sports. I think he's acting now, done well for himself, and perhaps has a bit more money to burn than the average North American team owner. And obviously we're getting lots of other celebrities coming in now, and venture capitalists and philanthropists and everything else. So the existing group of owners that have been at the top of this particular hierarchical structure are starting to feel a little bit threatened. So what they did in League of Legends was they effectively conspired together to apply pressure to Riot over the visa issue, which was by publicly stating, I don't think those players at Echo Fox have the right paperwork. And I thought that Riot were going to clamp down on this. And of course, they'd all been beneficiaries of Riot not clamping down on it in the past themselves, but they were going to insist that for Echo Fox, they had to dot the I's and cross the T's. So as a result of this, and this being very well known behind the scenes that this is exactly what happened, that tweet by Reginald being again part of a group decision. It was you're going to be the mouthpiece for the issue. That obviously Rick Fox, why then would he allow like the kind of star player, I think even owns shares in the team, is a partial owner of the Echo Fox brand. Why would he then allow why would he then allow that iconic player that he's trying to build a team around go and represent one of these guys who fucked him over? There's just no way that would ever happen. And I think, honestly...
I think that's quite reasonable. And obviously, the key point about that, Richard, is that you can't understand that unless you understand the League of Legends side of it, because it's nothing to do with CSGO. It's nothing to do with Mo, and it's nothing to do with the CSGO players of Team Liquid. Yeah. But
that's why I think it's important to kind of frame this, because I looked at the statement that was put out about why Mo suddenly couldn't play, and It was my commitments to Echo Fox would preclude me from doing it. I've thought about it, and I think I want to do it this way. Now, a lot of people have speculated, Mo wants to get that 6 Skrilla. Mo wants to go and do it with his team because it's going to be better for him. There's actually a bit more. There's some more subtle stuff going on behind the scenes that I don't think people are truly aware of. Because you're right, the average CSGO fan might just be a fan of CSGO. They might not see the bigger picture of esports. But that's definitely a factor. And I got to say, good on fucking Rick Fox, by the way. Good on Echo Fox for not taking that shit lying down like a lot of people do when they first come in the scene.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. And also, he's not in any way fucking them over. That's not egregious to not give them his player for free.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But of course, it is interesting that now it looks like it's going to be a Dren, still contracted with Cloud9, of course, that's going to come in and help Team Liquid out. Team Liquid and Cloud9, we're starting to see more of these interweaving ties. Just quickly, before we go on to some news hits and then wrap up the show, if it is a Dren for Team Liquid, I believe there's a Thorin quote here, man alive.
Yeah, here's the problem with this. When I saw this, I got really scared, actually, because I thought to myself, wait a minute, think of what just happened with G2 and EnVyUs, where what happened was G2 were being trusted by EnVyUs to be in an alliance. And then all that happened was Smith thought to himself, wait a minute, didn't you guys fuck me over about 6 months ago? You know what? I'm going to fuck you guys over. So essentially, you're just hoping that Adren...
Sorry, I just realized I said Adren contracted to Cloud9 and not Team Liquid. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, Team Liquid, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So my first concern was I thought to myself, oh no, well, since Adren knows he's not going to be in this team, and they have cut him in quite fucked up circumstances, like last second, I hope he doesn't sabotage them by trying his hardest to play really seriously.
No, but this is what I'm saying. So
maybe Adren will he'll show Simple what it's like to be in matchmaking with Ukrainians and Eastern Europeans. He'll say, drop me AVP. Give me your AVP.
This is what I think is interesting about it, because Adren has had to go out there now, and he's been okay. They said publicly they considered Natu, right? What is that? Hang on a minute. I'm still here. If I'm Adren, I'm like, motherfuckers, I'm in the room, guys. You only just cut me. So surely the way back is I just come back. But they're like, Natu hasn't played in a while, and I understand he has many children and doesn't ever sleep ever. Why do we get him in? Yeah, we should totally think about that. The idea that he was so low down the pecking order that guys like Natu were being considered, and then we'll just get Adren. Hey Eric, how's it been going? I love that demo analysis you've been doing on your stream. It's unbelievable. So here's the thing: if I was him, and I'm coming back to all of this. And, you still got this contract in place with Team Liquid. I'm not saying he's not going to try, but his motivation must be an all-time fucking low, because I think the penny's starting to drop just how little, despite all the public protestations about how great he is and how he's a model professional, just how little that the people in Team Liquid will actually think about him in terms of being a player. Yeah. I think that's evident. I
actually know the story of what happened. The reason they didn't get in contact with Adren is after he was removed, he took a little bit of a break off the game, and he actually went out to his ranch in Montana, and he was doing a bit of fly fishing, a little bit of hunting. He was out in his cabin that he's got out there, and he was working on some of his strat books that he does, and working on some flashes on cash and a few smokes that he's going to do in some videos for his life as an analyst and doing content creating on a streamer. And so they couldn't even get in contact with him. He doesn't have a phone out there. He likes to be away from everything, get away from the world, just chill out a little bit. So Liquid 112 and Eco had to go out on the chop. They came in and they landed, and out came Adren's wife. I don't know, whatever. Yep, I assume he has a wife. Seems like a perfectly straight heterosexual male. So he has a wife, and his wife comes out what are y'all doing? She's from Texas. What are y'all doing out here this time? And we gotta see Adren. She's like, oh, Eric's out in his cabin. Y'all come in the house to have some of this sweet lemonade. I don't know where I'm going at. Anyway, so they come in, they dust off, they head on out to their cabin, Eco knocks on the door. Yeah, you in there? He's like, yeah. And then they come in, he's in there working on his strats. How's it going, man? Yeah, just working on some strats. Okay. It's good strats. Yeah, like the ones I used to do in the team. okay. So then they say, so what are you doing here? And they say, Adren, we need you, man. He's like, no. You listen. You told me that was over. Like, I'm out. I told you I'm never going to go back to that life again. And then they say to him, like, no, just for one last job, man. We just need you for one last event. Come on, listen. We went through so much together. You remember last place PGL. You remember failing to qualify for ESL Barcelona. He goes, listen, you got to come. You got to help us for this one last job. Otherwise, we're going to have to get a guy who's retired, a guy who doesn't even play anymore. And he goes, it's not enough, man. I promised Jenny, that's her name, apparently.
Obviously.
I promised
great
Jenny.
lemonade.
By the way, she got a little one on the way, and they're like, "Oh shit, man! And like, steep, oh shit!" But still, we gotta ask you to come back, man. And then he says, like, "Listen, I told you I can't go back to that life. Like, it's done. Nowadays, shit, I don't even buy the AWP anymore. The decoy is rung out for the last time." And then they say to him, and then Liquid says, "Hiko, listen, can I talk to Eric alone for a second?" And he goes, "Okay." What are you going to say? Like, he goes, listen, I have a sense for people and what they want in life, and a way to talk to people. So listen, you just go outside for a second, and I'll figure things out. And Hiko goes outside, and he just hears like some love. Really? Yeah. Think about it. That's what you want. Like, listen, we both want that. And then he comes back in, and then he hears like a knock on the door, and they say like, "Hey, Hiko, yeah, we're done. Dren's back on board. Like, just go out on the chopper. Like, we'll give him a chance to pack up here, but me and you will go to the chopper now." And as they go to the chopper, Hiko says to Liquid 112, like, "What did you say to him, man? How did you get him to agree to come and play with us one last time?" And he says to him, "I said, listen, Eric, think about your legacy, man. Think about what they're going to remember you for in 10 years from now. Do you want them to remember you the way you were in iBuyPower? Do you want to remember you the way you were in Curse NA? Do you want to remember the way you were in Dynamic? Or do you want them to remember that at the end of CSGO, you failed to qualify for 3 majors, just like the 3 majors you did qualify? Do you want to make that a 50% winner?" It was really too long. And the joke was too extended there, Rich, to get to the payoff.
No. I like how it didn't have a payoff.
It was a very weak
I was
payoff.
expecting you to spend a bit more time on Jenny with the lemonade. Like,
I was trying to get it better.
My dressing gown appears to have fallen open. Oh, mercy me. I thought you were going to go that.
Lordy.
Lord.
These sophisticated gentlemen from the city.
All Eric ever cares about these days are those strats of his. Be sure nice to have a man in the house. That's where you were going to go. I obviously been watching a lot of porn lately.
Oh, Mr. Hiko, you sure are strong. What can I tell you? I get a lot of 4Ks.
Oh my god! Good stuff. So there was a follow-on point that I was going to get to. Again, talking about Liquid and Cloud9 and this interlinking relationship. You saw the tweet of Nothing, which you talked about earlier. Saying, "Hey, I'm a pretty shit in-game leader." It turns out, like, who knew? Who knew this would be hard, right?
That's a real.
Which you tweeted out saying, "I've never seen that." Like, and it's true, I've never seen that. I've just never seen an in-game leader. Yeah,
he literally just became that fucking meme of that dog. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Just like that dog in the lab coat. Like, it's only been one event. Yeah. Even you've lost hope. Like, guys, you know what I've just realized? I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. What was I supposed to be calling strats all the time? Shit, I thought that was starting next month. Well, you live and you learn, right, Freak? Now, listen, Freak, you're not going to be angry based on this bad event, right?
Just a big vein in his fucking head. No, the seminar has fixed everything. But anyway, so like I've never seen an in-game leader just come out and go, "Yeah, I'm pretty dog shit in this." So I was just wondering, with Adren being back in the loop and obviously C9 and Team Liquid all being this big little happy family and obviously working through these problems they've had with Simple and Freakazoid and stuff, could Adren be coming in as a coach? Because Nothing has alluded to the fact that he would need some assistance. He's not saying, "I'm not going to be an in-game leader." He's saying, "I need some assistance to get it right." So could Adren be maybe moving laterally across to Cloud9 and become a coach over there? And if so, would that be a good move?
I mean, here's the thing. I actually do think that that would be worth exploring. Like right now, Cloud9 need any help they can get. We've seen, unfortunately, they haven't been able to get a lot of the people they wanted. So I certainly don't think, put it this way, if you put Nothing and Adren together and they both think up some stuff, that it's going to be worse than Nothing thinking up some stuff on his own. So I think it's worth a try. Whether it'll be really good, I'm not sure about, because I do think as a coach, he could bring a lot more. Because listen, I've watched loads of the guy's videos and watched him even when he's done streams of games and broken down games. He actually has a very good mind for the game. Now, the question for me is if he'll be the coach. If he's just going to be the coach, I think that would add something. What I don't know is if you should make him the in-game leader. Like if they ever were to do that approach, like he becomes the coach in-game leader and does that. Like I don't know if that would make him revert to his own problems where he had issues in the game. Maybe not playing wouldn't, but I would say as a pure coach, like giving ideas to Nothing, maybe giving Nothing like just basic pointers to set the team up. Like maybe we should go with this guy in this role instead. Maybe I think that would be worth a try, put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. It was just an observation that given how, close they've all been working together lately, perhaps that could be a solution. And, Adren coming out of retirement for this one last job of his and leaving Jenny behind, which we're all very sad about. Maybe that'll be like where the next phase of his career goes. I did want to make an observation, actually. I mean, apart from the fact that the CSGO Reddit's gone to shit, by the way. Like, I looked on there the other day, and it was like 5 fucking posts about people putting a grenade through, like, a basketball hoop. There was, like, 5 posts to that. Right. I'm just like, is this happening? Is this the state of our game right now? And the fucking sub, when you do an autocomplete on it, it's called Global Dunk Offensive. Like, I despair for what's happening. But anyway, I noticed that the Reddit thread was continuing this trend. Reddit was continuing this trend of, hey, we've said Adren's dog shit at the game to the point where his position is becoming tenable, even though like him and Joker Steve seem to be having a bit on the side or whatever the fuck, because he was just leading this mad charm. I hope Jenny doesn't find out about it. There's another storyline you can incorporate for next week, CSGO erotica with Thorin.
Eric, what are you doing there? Like, in a minute, the doors are locked. Oh, Joker Steve, what are you doing here? I did know it from source. We had a connection, man.
We had a connection, man. We had that glorious summer playing Source together. But anyway, so the point I was going to make was all of a sudden now, like Adren's fucking flavor of the month, right? Everyone's saying, I saw a thread. There's no bullshit, right?
Literally for Joker Steve.
Definitely. All these flavors and you chose to be salty. But anyway, there was an actual thread. This is an actual thread, right?
It's weird. I know it's a lot of pineapple juice.
I know a trend.
Urban myth?
It's not actually. I know a trend. I asked Sky Williams. I know a Dren is not a caster, but he is my favorite caster. It's just blew my fucking. It's blew my mind. Like, boom! Unbelievable! Dren isn't a caster. He's my favorite caster. Who isn't a caster? What the fuck is this? Can I just say, Thorin, you're my favorite politician? Can I just say that? I know you're not a politician, but if you were, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, that's how fucking dumb it's got. But fuck it. I think in a lot of ways, all the pressure we applied on this show, we've actually helped him out. We've made him have a career. I think he'll be a very well-respected coach because the fucking circle jerk will just fucking, pull him into readiness.
Also,
for the next chapter, Steve.
He's got that whole factor going on, which people always overreact to, which is because most people, like, obviously everyone doesn't watch every episode and everyone doesn't really listen to everything we say. They hear like the sound bite of like Adren is shit or whatever, and they don't realize we mean he's not good enough for Team Liquid, or I think there should be a better player for Team Liquid, or I think he underperforms in these situations. I've always said, as I've said many times, he could be an in-game leader on a lesser team. He could be an in-game leader even for another team like Cloud9 maybe. He could do all these things, but because they hear that you said he's shit, when they then go and find out that he's not an idiot and he's not shit entirely in the way that they think, the backlash is like, oh, actually, he's really good. He's amazing. It's like the people will always have the react. Basically, they're hipsters. They're by the numbers hipsters.
And I can't believe people are missing the point as well. Like, I think Clive's in chat. I think Clive's slithered out of whatever bush he's like sat in with the binoculars and is posting under a name. Basically, like, the point is, yes, he was casting games, but he isn't a full-time caster. Sorry that wasn't explicitly said. I thought people would have enough mental wherewithal to get the point. Obviously, he has casted games, but he's not a full-time caster, is he? So, but he's my favorite caster because that's the point of the bit I'm saying. Try and keep up, you fucking retard. Right. So news hits. Talking to, I'm not going to do that segue. You're definitely not going to do that segue. The Mongols, their US visa was declined. And they're not going to be able to attend now. It looks like so.
They can't attend in just the normal. I mean, most people can just attend, and you get the tourist visa, and you come from 90 days. So what you're saying is the Mongols have special needs.
Yeah, they have special travel needs, evidently.
Oh, okay, special travel needs. Okay.
Yeah, because apparently, I don't know, but Mongolia, the Mongolia and US relations, I don't know if they're at an all-time low, but apparently it's super.
Oh, that's fucked up. Listen, the Americans have really got to change their relationship with the Mongs.
Jesus Christ. I knew this was going to be a fucking minefield. I can tell as well. You're in that like giddy sugar rush of thinking about Jenny's lemonade. I knew this was going to be a serious segment, but no. But I just wondered what you thought. If it was like, was it a bad thing? I obviously want to give special commendation to like MLG because like Adam Apicella himself kind of got involved, and I think they even reached out to like a local congressman to try and get something done, and it was still no dice. So it's a really sad story, and I just wondered if you had any thoughts about it, apart from some edgy jokes.
No, actually, that is a very sad one. Not least because, I mean, here's the thing. I'm not riding the hype train. I don't think that team would have qualified. I don't think they'd have rolled everyone. I don't think they'd have been all amazing. But I wanted to at least see. I wanted them to get their chance. And also, like I've said, for me, it's not whether the team was really good. When I watched all these games of that machine gun guy, he did seem pretty good. So even if his team didn't make it, I wanted to at least see, like, could he put up a heroic performance on a not so good team? I mean, that's what Kuster was doing on this team that wasn't that great before. So I want to see, okay, maybe he gets a chance to show he's more legit, etc., etc. Fortunately, we're not going to get to see any of that, and it looks now as though they're not going to make it because it's so close to the event. So the problem there is I don't know a way around it. Like when the guy who was a manager or something tweeted out the picture that was sent back to them from the embassy, like that looked really weird because the wording was like that they hadn't shown like that they had they hadn't like established that they had a real reason to go back to Mongolia, which is like, that's very bizarre.
Well, no, but I mean, it's strange. I mean, like, obviously, I come to the US quite a bit. Like, they want to know when you're leaving. I mean, trust me, like, even the Brits, right? It's like, when are you getting the fuck out of our country? You think about like how how hard it is to get in, and you get the questions, and you have to have all this paperwork and all that. Like, when you're leaving, they just fucking push you out with a fucking broom. Like, see ya, yeah. By the way, Trump's getting in, and we're building a wall. See ya. It's just how it is. So I do feel a bit sorry for them, but I mean, it does make you wonder. I'm not saying it's quite this bad, but I think there was a team. This is going back to an Olympic event. I can't remember what year it is. It's probably going to be before any of us were born. But there was because the country doesn't exist anymore. The country used to be called Zaire. I don't know what that got absorbed into as Africa sort of was remapped and reshaped. But the Zaire Olympic team, I think, came out. And they went to the event, went to the Olympics, and then they all just disappeared. Like none of them went back. They all just went into like Italy and sought asylum and stuff. And I'm not saying that's what the Mongols were doing. I'm not saying that, Thorin, but it does seem a bit suspicious that the embassy were like, when are you going home?
See, the real problem here is the people at the embassy, are you ready for reference game incredibly on point, had just watched the classic movie Escape to Victory with Sylvester Stallone and Pele, and they were worried that the crowd hype around Mongols was so great that when the Mongols won the game that they were supposed to lose, that all the fans in the crowd would surround them with their coats, escort them off, and they would just disperse into the local area of Columbus, Ohio, and live out fruitful lives there. That's what they were really worried about. What's great is that analogy is so good, but no one watching this has seen that movie. So again, reference game incredibly on point. Congratulations.
Also in the news, before we wrap up, there was a couple other things I wanted to talk about. Let me just bring that up there. Well, this isn't that big a deal, but I guess we should maybe talk about it a little bit. We often talk about talent lineups. Katowice, you're not there, Duncan. Imagine my surprise. What do you think about it?
About me not being there?
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously. Here's the thing. That's one of those factors that really shows me like that. You know, I constantly explain that mechanism whereby, because the number of fans increases all the time and we get a lot of crossover fans, we get a lot of new fans, well, they obviously haven't been around, so they don't know the stuff from before. So it's not a joke that every ESL event that's announced, loads of people are like, why isn't Thorin on here? But even worse, they do it for all the Katowices. Like, forget the other events, guys. Yeah, okay, maybe I could do a Barcelona event for ESL. I'm obviously not ever going to be doing an event in Poland for ESL. I think we can just go ahead and check that off the bucket list as something that's not going to happen anytime in this lifetime.
Okay.
But
overall,
the next one, when I get reincarnated, and for being really good, I'm going to become a Polish person.
Yeah,
see the way I spun that one there?
Yeah, now. I was trying to think what curver. That's all I really know. But I thought it was a good talent lineup. You know, overall, again, you've got all the big guns in there. And as you know, Yanko's going to be there as analyst, continuing his relationship with the ESL. You've got OJ Borg. What I thought was interesting here was they're going to have Choba as a host, and the way they particularly worded OJ Borg this time for Katowice was he's going to be a sideline reporter, which I thought was interesting because that sounds like a little bit more professional to what we're used to. You know, when you think about how sports events work, you know, as players run onto the field, and I'll just grab a quick word here, Peyton Manning, why is your forehead so big or whatever, you know, and that, you know, whether we'll be seeing something a little bit different to what we're used to. Like when we did Collusion of Poker, we had Scoots kind of doing that a little bit as well. So I think that might be interesting. But it looks like a good talent lineup, and obviously I'll be looking forward to the event, of course. One of the Ryu, who we know, obviously the coach from Enemy, he made a tweet today saying that it's been confirmed that there's not going to be any coach stickers for the next major when the stickers are dispensed. Just wanted to get your thoughts about that. I mean, it seemed a bit weird to me. Obviously, he is a coach, so I can kind of get it why people would be why he would be like, oh, that's a bummer, because obviously he's not going to get any Skrilla because of it. But like coach stickers, are we there? Should that happen? I mean, every team seems to have a coach these days. Here's
the problem with that, is that on one level, I myself, I can't remember if I've ever said it on By the Numbers, but I have said to Anders, just because I like to fuck with Anders a bit, I always go, Anders, imagine if they had stickers for casters, Anders. Yeah. And I watch his little Danish eyes flare up with, like, after his soul's been crushed down by having a family and doing a million events and having to say that, like, fucking, I can't wait to watch Rubino play this game. This is wicked, this. Yeah. Fucking, are you kidding me? Like, after he's had to do that so much, and his dead eyes, it's just coming out robotically, mechanically out of his mouth. I watched his little, there was a flicker of light in the back. Yeah, casting stickers. Yeah, that'd be money. But I say that because I also think people would buy an Under sticker if there was one. Let's be real, yeah. Ryu.
He'd make a fortune.
Listen, Ryu, no one's going to buy your sticker. Like, your dad might buy a sticker. Why not just have him give you the $2 himself? Cut out the middleman, cut out Valve. Have your dad buy 10 of them, give you $15, make it yourself. Here you go. Look, I've made you, Dad. A little sheriff's patch with Ryu on. Why couldn't you have named me after a good Street Fighter character, Dad? Blanca or something.
Dalton. Anyway, big fan. Love those stretchy arms. Yoga fire. But no, seriously though, I like. Do you think there's ever going to be?
Well, the joke, obviously, Rich, is that there will be a coach sticker. I'm going to create a coach sticker for Ryu, but he will be paid in bison dollars. The bison dollars are obviously going to be one day worth $5 real.
What about? I was going to say that. What about if there was a GB James sticker, dude? You'd be into that shit, surely.
Here's the sad thing. Are you ready?
Yeah,
it would be the highest selling coach sticker because GB James would be so desperate to get that record, he would spend all his own salary buying the stickers. And it would be like, it's weird because all the GB James ones went to brand new accounts that had never been played on before. And he would just have spent all his own money on it. Brilliant.
So I think I remember.
I would love it if in the future people who track the economy for skins were like, yeah, oh look, I've got this new stat track up. Sorry, mate, the valuation's gonna have to go down. There, it's got a GB James sticker on it, scratched off. I tried to scratch it off, mate. That's not enough. That only raises the value by half. It's still got a GB James sticker on it, mate. It's not going to be worth much as a gun.
Just to keep the reference game incredibly on point, I actually want like stickers for personalities and casters in the game, like I do, right? Because I think we've done enough now in Counterstrike to say that we're a fixture, we're part of the furniture. I'd like people to be able to get an Anders or a Semler sticker or a Richard Lewis or a Thorin sticker or a Moses, whoever the fuck it is, But here's why I would particularly like it, because I think I could clean up on this. Colonel Tom Parker, who was the manager of Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously not personally, but I'm talking.
I know
about.
of him. Yeah.
Yes, I'm familiar with his work. Well, yeah, absolutely. A con man in a Stetson. Yeah, of course. Yeah, massive piece of shit. He came up with a great idea, which was when he was the manager of Elvis, he also marketed "I Hate Elvis" badges.
Yeah.
Right. So he could double dip. He could get money from the fans of Elvis, and he could get money from the fucking people who hated Elvis. And that was what he did. And that's what I want to do. I'd want 2 sets of stickers. Like, I love Richard Lewis, like, with my bald head down, and then fuck Richard Lewis and have that. I'd fucking make a fortune. Make a fucking fortune.
If I had a sticker that was Tuck Thorin, that would sell out, mate.
Yeah, Tuck Thorin, yeah, for real. For real, it would. There was one final thing, and then we'll get out. What the fuck was it? I had it here. Yeah, that was it. Last week, we promised we were going to talk about Nuke. So
I played it now.
Yeah. Yep. Same. My computer stopped crashing after the hotfix, so I've had a run around. I think it's interesting. You made a good point actually on Twitter. Not like you, but you did, and that was about how people obviously don't. Imbalanced maps aren't the problem. Like, people will embrace fundamental imbalances in the map. Like we talked about how Train, when they remade it, it's like you identified that inner rush, for example, as part of being, you can just press gang your way down there and pretty much be guaranteed a plant every time, particularly on those force buys and Tech 9 buys and whatnot. And this is a feature that wasn't really there to the same extent in like 1.6 or whatever. So, and you were saying people obviously don't mind imbalanced maps that much because people want to,
as long as they're T-sided.
Yeah, as long as they're T-sided,
or you can get a lot of T-rounds.
Now Nuke, here we are. It's unbelievably T-sided.
Yep.
Which is like the first time in the map's history that you can ever say that. So what do you think of the new map?
Yeah, that's the reason why I noticed that is because you see maps like Cobblestone, like Train, where they come back and they have this T-side bent to them. I mean, admittedly, Train isn't fully T-sided, but the problem is for the best teams, it's T-sided. And no one complains because what people actually like is here's what people don't like in Counter-Strike. They don't like when it's a CT-sided map. They know it's a CT-sided map, and so they're scared to go in as terrorists, and they just sit back all the time, waiting forever. No one does anything, and that is boring. I get it. Whereas on T-side, where it's T-sided map, the CTs still have to sit there anyway, and then you get to go in, and also maybe you get more kills, and that's it. Everyone likes playing T-side for some reason in Counter-Strike. It's just something people enjoy more, because you can be more of an idiot on the T-side when it's a matchmaking game, because you can just run in. Whereas CT side, you have to sit there for a lot of the time, and you don't dictate the action in the same degree. So I've noticed that hypocrisy. But the main problem I've noticed with Nuke is, first and foremost, as soon as you load the game up, everyone's going to find this. It's like some mad graphical drain. Like, my computer runs every map perfectly, full settings. That's the only one where it still can play it fine. It's not, I don't have any issues with like shooting the guns or whatever, but I can feel constantly like a slight like drain on how much fucking FPS it takes and all the rest of it. And in fact, one of the areas it's most noticeable is if I alt tab in and out, it takes way longer to alt tab back into the game. In terms of the actual map, I don't like the aspect where they've put that railing so that it goes round and the terrorists can just jump down off the big silo outside and just already be on the upper rafter area outside going into the upper site. Like, because you notice that just makes it way too hard to cover the outside. Like, that's another thing they've done on this map that I don't like. They've taken away a lot of the angles you can spot. So as a result, that's how they've made it multi-sided. But the way they've done it just makes it now incredibly frustrating to play a CT. Like, you can be attacked from like 4 different angles at once. You can't really watch a spot on outside as much. I don't like that. And then one key problem that I think they have to change is they made it so that you can plant on top of the actual like those reactors or whatever in the bomb spots. Now, on one of them, that's okay. You can get onto that one easily enough. But the one that's the lower one, you can't get up on that one unless you go up onto the outside area on the lower bomb site, B site, and then jump onto it. So if someone plants up there in a 1v1 and you don't know it's there, you can just sometimes not diffuse it. Like stuff like that. It's just like, it's a very small change, but like these things added all up. I think that map's just not ready for competitive play right now. I see a lot of issues with it where they've got to change some of that.
I mean, I won't echo what you've said.
I don't think it's very good put that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. I mean, about, like people seem to hate the CT bias. It was the CT bias that got nuke removed in the first place. Yeah. Famously, maps that have never done particularly well in the competitive pool as we sort of moved into a modern era of Counterstrike. Dust fell by the wayside. We all played Dust too. Aztec, that got took out. Cobble in its original form. These were all CT-sided maps. These were unbelievably so, like more so than almost any map. And Nuke, as it transitioned from Source into CSGO, became one of those maps where you'd regularly see, 12 threes, 13 twos, 14 ones, and then the game wouldn't be over because when they got on the CT side, if they won the pistol, it was all good going, and it would still end up being very close. It's because of how hard it was as T. I agree with you. I don't think this is anywhere near ready for competitive play. What I'm worried about is, do you think Valve are going to do that classic thing where they go, you guys are just knee-jerking here. This is like the R8 all over again. We know what we're doing. We're not going to roll this back. No chance. Actually, you guys are just going to learn how to play it, and we think CT sides will evolve and adapt. And I don't think it's viable. I think there's some fundamental issues where this is actually always going to be a T-sided map if it remains in its current form. But do you think Valve are going to basically tell everyone to man up and learn how to play it properly?
The big concern I have is that they haven't yet, as far as I know, announced if they'll use it for the major. So the major is not that far away. And if they decide to use it for the major, that's a nightmare. Because remember, the key thing about the major that still exists is the random third map draw. So if they get it in, then we could have the final be the best game ever for 2 maps and then suddenly go on to Nuke and then be a shit show and end the whole tournament on a dog shit and note. So I don't like that at all. Obviously, it's even worse in the group stages where we have that component. So I hope that even if they keep the map as it is now, they at least wait before, like let people figure out more shit before they, like I wouldn't put it into this major. If you're going to do a major, target the one in the middle of the year. Go for that one and get it ready for them. And
meanwhile, you've got a lot of love being shown towards Santorini at the moment, which is, a map that's kind of out there. I mean, I don't know if you've had a go on that, if you've played around on it. I've had a couple of runarounds on it. Do you think, I mean, I guess it is straight up comparison. Would you rather see a map like that over a map like Nuke?
Over Nuke? Yeah. The problem I have with that map is, I don't mind it. Like one thing I like about it is that it's not like a huge map. Like, there's a bunch of different ways into the sites, but it's not a massive map. So I like that aspect. Like, that seems to work well. The big problem I have with that map is it seems incredibly cluttered. Like, whenever I play on the T side of that map, it feels like there's a million places like the CT can be hiding. And one of the things I don't like about CSGO is the number of like little textures that'll be all over the place, like a little bit of grass out of the floor, these sorts of things. It makes it really hard. Like, admittedly, I'm like slightly colorblind, but it makes it really hard to like visually just instantly see where the opponent is if he's on your screen. It's one thing if he's hiding and he peeks out again, but if he's on your screen, you shouldn't be missing that with your eyes. Like, I've played Counterstrike for years and years. I think the actual like visual acuity in that sense is pretty bad in CSGO. So the maps have to not be very cluttered to counter that. And unfortunately, this map feels a little bit cluttered in some of those aspects. But I think if you tweak it, it could be a good map.
Okay. Well, we'll end the show there. As always, I'll ask you if you've got any plans for upcoming content. I know we were meant to wrap up a little bit early, but with the technical problems, that's my fault. I've kind of kept you a little bit longer than you would have liked. So what have we got to look forward to from you before you travel to the MLG event?
I've got a few videos already recorded. Like, I've got some classic CS stuff coming up again, because I'm trying to keep that like rolling where I have a few every few days. I'll do something like it's an old school piece of history because people seem to be liking that, and it's obviously like fun for me to do. I'll probably put out a video before I go, or while I'm on the way there, or maybe the night before when I get there, about like the MLG groups, get my basic thoughts there, because obviously we never got to cover it on this show. So I'll do that, like my thoughts on who's going to get out what the groups, etc. And then I don't know if I'll get it out in time, but at some point I'm gonna do the video where I try to look at more Virtus Pro games and figure out what my theory is as to what's going on there. Will they get it together again? I think that's the main stuff I've got in the works for CS at the moment.
Okay, well, looking forward to seeing those and retweeting them, no doubt. I'm going to be traveling to the event as well, so I will see you, very soon. And that's that. I guess we wrap up here. So obviously, thanks to you for your time. Thanks for Sam for producing the show. Thanks to Alphadraft for letting us do the show that we want to do, and at the times that we want to do it because of our very busy and active lifestyles. You guys can show your appreciation by going over to alphadraft.com, creating an account, and basically engaging in fantasy drafting for CS, where you can pick a Dren for his last hurrah, put him in your team, and wonder what the fuck you're doing with your life. For example, you can have all sorts of fun over at Alphadraft and win money for doing it. So definitely support them. They've supported us. Thanks to all of you for watching. And until next week, when we should be back at the regular time in the regular day, which will be a Wednesday. Until then, may all your drafts be alpha. Peace.